In today's video, I'm reviewing a 2004 Hummer H2. The H2 was first introduced to the US market for the 2003 model year and ran through 2009 before being discontinued. It saw a minor refresh in 2008, and then they also introduced a pickup version in 2005. All around, the H2 is a very controversial SUV. The exterior styling on the vehicle is designed to mimic what we see in the H1 Hummer, which was designed for the US military and is an incredible off-road capable SUV. It has some really cool features and it's amazing what that vehicle can do, but it's not the most practical vehicle for day-to-day use. There are civilian Hummer H1s out there, but they're very wide, so they're hard to drive down the road, they're hard to park. They're not the most comfortable vehicle, and the driver and passenger sit incredibly far away from one another. And so really cool vehicle, not the best for day-to-day use. And so what Hummer tried to do with the H2 model was kind of combine that image that you get with the H1 with the practicality of a more family-friendly SUV. So what you're getting with the H2 is essentially a combination of the Chevy Silverado half-ton and three-quarter-ton and a Chevy Tahoe. So the chassis on the vehicle up front is a Silverado 2500, in the rear it's a half-ton, and then essentially the vehicle overall is a Tahoe. And you're going to see a lot of similarities in the vehicle with those Chevy models. The powertrain's carried over from Chevy, and then inside the vehicle, even the steering wheel, a lot of the controls, LCD screens, instrument cluster are really carried over from the Chevy models. They do have a number of features, design cues throughout the vehicle that kind of separate this model and give it more of that rugged appearance. But essentially you're getting kind of a souped up Chevy Tahoe. Now there are a lot of purists out there that feel like this is blasphemy to even put the Hummer name on this, because essentially it is a Chevy model. And there's no doubt that this vehicle is not as off-road capable as an H1. But at the same time, it's still a very off-road capable vehicle. The approach angle, the departure angle, some of the technology they have in terms of traction control system, locking differential, this vehicle's got a lot of features that still make it very off-road capable. Obviously though, the thing that really stands out the most about the H2 is the styling. It's very bold, very rugged looking, and very in your face, especially when you get in this bright yellow color. Some of the design cues that carry over from that H1, this whole grille headlight design kind of mimics what you see in the H1 model. This grille up on the hood, again similar to the H1, as well as these raised portions up by the windshield. The very boxy look that you get with the shape of the windshield and these side windows, which are kind of compressed vertically, again carried over from that H1. And then the stock wheels that you get on the H1 are also very similar in terms of looks to what you see in the H1. This vehicle's got a set of aftermarket wheels, so that's not going to be carried over as much. We've also got the hood hold downs here, carried over from that H1, and the hood opens up at the front. So, you know, a few of those things that kind of pay tribute to the H1, but again, essentially, you're getting a souped up Tahoe. And I think that's fine. You know, obviously, if you want to get an H1, you can do that. You can get a vehicle that's incredibly off-road capable, has some really cool features, and it's going to be great on the trails. Or you can get something like the H2, which is still very incredible on the trails, has that H1 appearance, but it's going to be a little bit better for that more day-to-day use. So just doing a quick walk around of the vehicle, you know, again, you can just see it's got a very rugged, bold look to it. Some of the indentations that you get in the doors here, everything on the vehicle is very boxy. The door handles, the mirrors, again, paying tribute to that H1 model. But at the same time, it's got some little design cues that give it a more sporty look too. I love the rear end of the vehicle here, how this kind of slopes up and how it's got a pretty short wheelbase for a very large SUV. Up top, you can see we've got these plastic rails here with the integrated crossbars, pretty cool there. And then up above, we've got the cab lights, which are pretty sweet. You'll see that we've also got a sunroof up there. It's one of the great things about the H2 is that you get a lot of really nice luxury and tech features, as well as being very off-road capable and having this bold appearance. The rear end of the H2 is very bold too, very flat look to it. Again, we've got some of these upper cab lights, the grills over the tail lights, which again are very boxy, and then the bumper just has a really cool look to it. Again, very boxy. Some of these shackles that we can tie onto if needed. I also love how far they push back the rear axle on the vehicle. Obviously they're doing it for that departure angle, It's just going to help when you're on difficult terrain, but there's also just something that looks really cool about it. The H2 was Hummer's first kind of normal SUV introduced to the US market. I mentioned that they added the pickup version in 2005, and then they also added the H3 model, which sits below this, a little bit smaller. Personally, I'm not as much a fan of the H3. It still looks really cool, but I feel like there's something that's still kind of premium about this model compared to the H3, which feels a little bit cheaper overall. You'll see up front, we've got an aftermarket grille guard here with the fog lights, but then we've also got the inset fog lights in the lower bumper that comes stock. See, we've got a nice skid plate on the bottom there too. Chrome accents on the mirrors. I think it's a great looking SUV. It's very controversial. A lot of people feel like it's too bold, or that it's, you know, copying the H1 without having the capability of the H1. But overall, I think it's a really cool SUV. While the exterior of the H2 pays quite a bit of tribute to the H1 in terms of design cues, inside it's a completely different story. There's really nothing that's similar between the H1 and H2 model when you get inside. It's much more similar to those Chevy counterparts. It does have a unique feel when compared with the Tahoe and Silverado. You'll see that the windshield is very boxy and square, and then the length of the dashboard is quite a bit longer than those other vehicles. So it really changes the feel of the vehicle when you're driving it. The other thing that's really different is that you'll see that the hood, because it's got that very bold square shape to it, really changes the feel when you're inside driving. It's also got these circular vents, and then the grab handles are very bold in comparison. See that this shifter also looks like it came out of an airplane. Now there are quite a few parts that are carried over from those other Chevy models. You'll see it with some of the buttons, the steering wheel design, the instrument cluster, climate control system, a lot of carryover parts. The vehicle does come very heavily loaded with luxury and tech features. We've got power windows, power door locks, power heated mirrors. We've got a Bose premium audio system. See, we've got some storage space integrated in the door here. Full leather seats, powered on this driver's side with memory settings for 2 drivers. Those memory settings not only control the seat settings, but pedal controls, climate settings, audio system. You'll see left of the steering column, we've got control for the rear windshield wiper, headlight and fog light controls. On the steering wheel, we've got a number of controls. Upper left has some voice activation features, as well as audio control. And then in the upper right, more audio control buttons. Bottom right is some vehicle setting controls, and bottom left is for trip and fuel economy information. See that the instrument cluster has the white backing. It's a little bit different from those other Chevy models. Center dash, we've got an aftermarket stereo, but you're going to get AM/FM radio, CD, and then you'll see we've got controls for the 4-wheel drive system on the left here. So it's got a 4 low and high option, and then on the top we've got a locking rear differential. Traction control system on the vehicle is very sophisticated. When one of the wheels is off the ground, it will send all the power to the wheel that is on the ground, but then it's also got this TC2 button that you can push to increase wheel spin. So if you're in deep snow or mud and you want your wheels to spin out, you can push that button. It will allow that to occur. See below that we've got a tow mode. Got our climate control system here in the middle. It's dual zone for the front of the vehicle for driver and front passenger. Below that we've got OnStar controls, which is for a subscription service, includes crash notification, roadside assistance, theft recovery, and then other convenience features. Below that, 2 more 12-volt outlets and a cigarette lighter. Got 2 cup holders, our shifter, and then a nice large center console. Seats also have armrests. Up above, we've got the optional sunroof, which has a very large opening. It's tilt and sliding. And then you'll see that we've got controls for HomeLink garage door opener, allows you to program up to 3 garage door openers or gates. And then the mirror is a self-dimming mirror with a compass and temperature readout. In the middle row, you'll see that the H2 is very spacious, plenty of leg, shoulder, and headroom. Center console's got a couple of vents bringing that heat and air to the rear. Below that we've got audio controls, allows rear passengers to use the vehicle audio system. It will actually turn off the rear speakers and you can plug in headphones. On both sides you'll see those controls for the heated seats for the outside middle row passengers. Little storage compartment below that, and then 2 more 12-volt outlets. Middle seat here folds down as an armrest with 2 cup holders. And you'll see we've got a little storage space integrated in the door here. The middle row does fold down in a 60-40 split. It's a 2-step process here. Pull that and then drop this down, and you'll see we've got a little jump seat in the rear. This is optional and increases seating capacity to 6. Coming around to the rear of the Hummer, pull this handle here to open up the rear hatch. And you'll see that with the 3rd row seat in use, because it's only on one side, we still have a pretty good amount of rear storage space. Again, we've got that storage compartment here. More storage space and a cup holder on this side. And you'll see we've got controls for locking the doors in the rear, as well as another 12-volt outlet. This seat does fold up to increase rear storage space. So it's a 2-step process here. And then the seat can also be removed from the vehicle fairly easily by pulling on this handle right here. Now, opening the hood on the H2 is a little bit unique. You'll see that we detach these straps on both the driver and passenger side. And then there's a little clip that we need to undo here to drop down the grille guard to give us clearance to open this hood. So then if we lift this up, gives us nice wide access to the engine compartment. Also looks pretty cool when it's open. Now this is a 2004 model, so it's got a 6-liter V8 with 325 horsepower. It will do 0 to 60 in 10.7 seconds, and it's paired to a 4-speed automatic transmission. For 2002 to 2003, it had the same 6-liter V8, but horsepower is only 316. And then with the 2008 refresh that they did, they swapped out the engine with an upgraded 6.2-liter V8, which has 393 horsepower. That vehicle will do 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds, and is paired to a 6-speed automatic. Fuel economy numbers are not published on the H2 because of the size of the vehicle, but most publications note a fuel economy rating between 10 and 13 miles per gallon. Obviously, all H2s come in 4-wheel drive. Now, one of the things that you can't help but love about the H2 is that it's a vehicle that just begs you to go off-road. You can't buy one of these and not at least venture off at some point. Typically when I do a review, I don't really take the vehicle off-road because they're not my vehicles. That's the same with the H2, but I couldn't help but at least drive down a little side road. We've got some really kind of undulating terrain here with some really soft snow, and it's no match for the vehicle. It doesn't even notice that there's any challenge with any of this situation. Obviously this isn't anything too intense, but still it gives you a little bit of taste what the capability might be with the vehicle. We got 10 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty good, and then the approach angle and departure angle on this vehicle are also very impressive. The Chevy Tahoe's got an approach angle of just under 20 degrees. In comparison, this has an approach angle of 43.6. And so while this vehicle is not going to be any match for the H1, it still has some really impressive capability that's going to give it some real cred when you get off on some of those trails. Also, one thing that's really nice about the H2 when compared to the H1 is that it's not as wide. So the H1 was really designed for desert driving where width doesn't matter. But if you're going to be going down any narrow trails, the H2 is going to have an advantage in that sense. Also has some really great technology features. I already mentioned the traction control system. If you get one of those wheels off the ground, typically a vehicle is going to send all that power to the wheel that's spinning. This vehicle's got a system where it's going to send it to that wheel that's not spinning instead. And then of course we've got that TC2 button that we can push that will allow the vehicles to really spin. So if we get in a situation where it's really muddy or a lot of snow and you just need to get that momentum going, it allows you to send all that power to the wheels. It allows the traction control system to let those wheels spin. It really works to your advantage in that sense. Now, I really wish that I could take the vehicle for a true off-roading adventure, but again, it's not my vehicle, so this little sample is going to have to do. But definitely impressed with a little bit of exposure that I've given it so far. Once we get the vehicle up onto the paved road, the drivability is actually still pretty good. You wouldn't really expect that with a Hummer, but again, this is kind of a Chevy Tahoe in disguise, and the Chevy Tahoe has a great ride quality. So it's overall a very quiet, smooth ride. It's very comfortable. Obviously, we've got the leather seats, heated seats, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, dual zone climate, Bose audio system. So in a lot of ways, this is really kind of a luxury vehicle. I'd say that the main differences between this and a Tahoe is the feel that you get inside the vehicle. So visibility is not quite as good, but it's actually a lot better than I expected. You know, you get this vertical dimension that's a little bit shorter, so you don't see out of the vehicle quite as much, but looking all around, I still feel like I can see pretty well, and you've got really nice large side mirrors, so it's not all that bad. It's almost an illusion. The other thing about that is because of the boxy dimensions of the vehicle, you get a little bit more wind noise than you get in the Tahoe, just because this vehicle is not as aerodynamic. It's kind of like a parachute driving down the road. But even in that sense, the drivability of the vehicle in every sense is still better than what I expected. It's really overall very quiet, smooth, comfortable, and a very luxurious vehicle. We've got that 6-liter V8 under the hood, which provides more than enough power, so you're not going to have any issues with merging on the highway, passing vehicles, driving over a mountain pass. Really has plenty of power. Overall, I think the H2 is a really cool vehicle. It's got a really unique look and feel to it. It's fun to drive, it's luxurious, it's got a lot of features. There's really nothing else out there that's quite like it. The biggest downside is obviously that fuel economy, and that's really what killed the brand to begin with. Sales started off really strong with the H2 model. They got up to kind of mid 30,000 range at its peak, and then by 2008 sales had dropped to 6,000 units, and then in its final year, 2009, they only sold about 1,500. So I can kind of get why they discontinued the model. That on top of the fact that GM was on the verge of bankruptcy, so I get it, but I also wish that they would have just kept the model going, put some more fuel efficient engines in, and you know, maybe strike a balance there. Since they don't make them anymore, at least this will continue to be a classic going forward for many years. So that's the H2 Hummer. I know that this is a really controversial vehicle all around. There are those out there that feel like the styling is way too dramatic. They wouldn't be caught inside of one. There are those that feel like the fuel economy is really bad and that it's destroying the planet. And then of course there are the purists out there that would say this shouldn't have the Hummer label. It's not an H1. It isn't as capable as an H1, and that it's blasphemy to call this a Hummer. And so it is obviously a very controversial vehicle. Personally, it will always hold a special place in my heart. I think it has a really cool look to it, really stands out within a crowded SUV segment as something that's very unique styling. And while the fuel economy is definitely bad, if you look at other full-size SUVs from this era, around this size, the Chevy Tahoe, the Ford Expedition, the Toyota Sequoia, those don't get very good gas mileage either. So yes, you're seeing a slight drop in fuel economy when compared to those SUVs, but in exchange, you're getting a vehicle that really has a unique appearance to it. And although it's not as off-road capable as the H1, it's still a very off-road capable SUV. And so you're getting a vehicle that's very unique, still very off-road capable. I love the H2. I think it's a shame that they discontinued it. There are rumors that they're actually going to bring back the Hummer brand in an electrified form. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually happens. Totally change the reputation of Hummer, still maintain that off-road capability, the rugged looks, and get rid of the negative connotations with poor fuel economy and destroying the planet. So interesting to see what GM does with that in the future. But for what it is, I love the H2. I think it's a really cool SUV. If you have any comments or questions on the H2, leave them in the section below. For more car reviews, be sure to subscribe. In the meantime, thanks for watching.